Hey everyone, I'm James Trano. I'm with Senné Real Estate. Cassie will say hello. She's behind the screens.
Hi, everyone.
This is typically how it works. I'm standing here with our three presenters and I'd like them to all introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Christine Bernadini. I'm a real estate attorney at Touchstone Closing Esquire. We have offices in Andover, Boston, Chatham, Framingham, Newburyport, Reading, and Senné, New Hampshire.
And next.
And I'm Fred Allard. I'm the sales manager of the Waltham branch of Mortgage Network. Similar to Christine's firm, we're located up and down Massachusetts and as well as the East Coast.
And I'm Stephen Solis, Stephen Home Inspection, Commonwealth, Mass. I'm a home inspector. I'm a sewer engineer by training, and I've been doing home inspections in the Boston area for 30 years.
So everyone, you can see that we have people that are professionals in their field. They understand what they're doing and basically how you can become a homeowner. There's a lot of different steps on the way to signing that final document at closing. Each of them involve these people in that journey. I mean, obviously you need to get a mortgage, so you need to understand what you can afford. When you're at that process when you find a home, you're gonna need someone to go through the home thoroughly to make sure that that home is gonna suit your needs and that there's no physical defects in the home that could hamper your livelihood and enjoying that home. And of course, Christine's gonna bring it home by making sure that all the documents involved with signing that final piece of paperwork is complete and accurate, and anything that has to do with insurance and everything, she will make sure that it's done correctly. Now, we're going to have a discussion, not really a discussion, excuse me. We're gonna have a seminar where each of these people will tell you a little bit about what they do, experiences that they've had along the way, and what you need to do before you consider buying a home, steps that you need to take in order to become, an educated homeowner. All right, so here we go. Christine, take it away.
Thank you, thank you. Hi, everyone. Just a little brief background of myself. My name is Christine Bernadini again. I'm with Touchstone Closing Esquire. I've been involved in the legal side of real estate for almost 25 years. I started out my career at 19 years old as a title examiner, not knowing what a title examiner was, because I went to law school and be a lawyer one day. And I had a friend whose dad was a real estate lawyer, and he said he needed a title examiner. So I was trained at the Registry of Deeds and started out doing title exams. From then, while in law school, I was a paralegal, so I got to learn that part of the process and how important that is to know as a real estate attorney. So for the past, it's going to be 20 years next year, I've been practicing as an attorney in Massachusetts. We can also do closings in New Hampshire and Maine as well at my office. So a lot of what I do is try to help the buyers understand how to best protect that asset that they're buying and why it's important to have some documents signed at the closing table and also other things that are available to help protect that asset. The very first document that you sign with Jim and Cassie is going to be your offer to purchase. The state of Massachusetts has held that that document is a legally binding contract to purchase real estate because it identifies, even though it's only 2 pages, it identifies all the terms that are necessary to consummate the transaction. You have parties identified, you have dates, you have loan amounts, you have more purchase price, you have property address. So courts have held that that 2-page contract can be a legally binding purchase and sale agreement. So you need to make sure that you're working with realtors who have your best interest in mind, know your position going into the market, what you can afford, and what you're able to purchase and what is important to you in that process, because the terms that you work with your realtors are going to dictate how it carries forward to when I come into play. Once the offer signed, Massachusetts, we have a 2-contract process in real estate. So the offer is our first one, and then typically the offer will say if you're going to have a home inspection, the home inspection is going to be done before the second contract, and that's where I come into play. The second contract is the purchase and sale agreement. The purchase and sale agreement will take the 2-page contract that you've signed and carry over into a much more in-depth discussion of each of the sides' obligations throughout the process. The purchase and sale agreement is typically negotiated by 2 attorneys. The seller will have their attorney. The buyers will have have an attorney as well. And we make sure that there's things in there that help protect you, to make sure that, God forbid, there's something happens and a person either loses a job or there's a situation and they're not able to obtain their mortgage. We make sure that there's proper wording in there to help give you the best protection that you can for your deposit. We do this because for most people, obviously, their house is going to be their most important, their largest asset. So you want to make sure that any contract that you're signing is reviewed by an attorney to make sure that your protections are kept in there. Other things that purchase and sale agreement will have in there, which I'll talk about in a second, is making sure that you're buying a property that has good, clear, marketable title. You don't want to buy the property and find out after you own it that there's either a lien that a prior owner didn't take care of. Or, you know, perhaps even somebody else might actually have an ownership interest in the property. So in the contract, we make sure there's verbiage in there that once we get our title search back, if there is a problem, and the seller's not able to fix that problem, that you have right to terminate the agreement and also get your deposit back that you put down to bind that agreement. So there's a lot of terms that go into the purchase and sale agreement. So once the purchase and sale agreement is actually finalized, the next process that your attorney will do is start the title work process. And they usually do this in conjunction with your lender. The attorney will work with your lender because the lender also wants to make sure that the money that they're giving you to purchase the property is protected in the event that, God forbid, they have to actually go in and foreclose on the property. They too want to make sure that they have good, clear, marketable title in that instance, because they're a lot of times lending you a lot of money to do this. So the title process, some of what's involved in that, in Massachusetts, we have to do a title search. The title search in Massachusetts is required to be at least a 50-year search. So we actually have to physically chain back the title to the property for 50 years. And part of that search shows us who has owned that property, what they've done with that property. Did they take out mortgages? Did they not pay their taxes? Did they not pay their credit cards? And their credit cards have put liens on that property. Has the town come in and done improvements around the property? Have they put in sidewalks? Have they improved the street and made it a public way where before it might have been a private way? So it really gives us a really in-depth study of the property. It also makes sure that we verify that we have the proper seller involved and making sure that the seller has the ability to sell that property. Some things that might affect their ability to sell that property is divorce. So we also have to do a review of probate records as part of our process in the title. Make sure that there is no pending divorce, because the divorce court will have an automatic stay on that person from their ability to actually sell the property. If it's an estate, if God forbid the owner has died, we have to make sure with the probate court that the proper documents have been filed with the probate court, so that the person who represents the estate of the deceased owner actually, whether or not they have the true authority to sell the property. Was there a will, or do they need to actually go to the court and ask permission for the sale of the property? So the title search is pretty in-depth, and like I said, it gives you a nice, like, kind of little package history of the property when it's complete. Other part of our title work involves working with the city and town as well to make sure that the property taxes are paid up to date, and if not, making sure that the seller is paying those at closing. So we have to request what we call a municipal lien certificate from every city and town that we do our closings for. And that certificate tells us the exact tax amount and the exact amounts that are outstanding and who's responsible for those amounts. And then in Massachusetts, if the property is a single family or multi-family home, we are also required to have a plot plan done. A plot plan is done by a surveyor. They go to the property. They don't physically stake the property. They don't do a full instrument survey because that can cost anywhere $1,000 or more depending on the property. But they do go to the property. They pull the plans at the registry of deeds. They pull the plans with the city and town to make sure that your house that you're buying is actually within the means and bounds of the land. You don't want to find out after you buy the house that your house is sitting on the property line and it's halfway on your neighbor's property. So that's what the plot plan is going to show us that. So ideally, we get all those documents in, we review them, make sure everything's in line, and that the title's good, clear, and marketable. Sometimes we do have title problems, and so it's our job then to kind of work with the seller's attorney to resolve those problems. Some of the typical problems we see, oftentimes it might have been a prior lien, a prior mortgage that maybe hasn't been released at the registry of deeds. Looking at the title, you can usually make a determination and see, yeah, it was most likely paid off at a certain time. But in order to make it a fully released lien off of the property, you have to make sure that the proper document is recorded at the registry of deeds to clear that lien from the title. So sometimes we have to work with them. Other things that might pop up is, again, missing owners, probate court, somebody conveys the property, without going through the proper process. A prior heir might actually have an ownership claim. So there's a couple problems that can pop up. Generally, we work through everything. I've only had, I'd say, probably 20 years of practicing as an attorney, maybe 2 or 3 that we were not able to close because of the title problem, because we needed to have it resolved prior to. And the reason why is because part of the process with buying a home, you have the ability to purchase title insurance. Now, there are 2 types of title insurance that you'll see popped up throughout the process. You'll see a lender's title insurance policy, and you'll also see an owner's title insurance policy. If you are purchasing a property with a mortgage, your mortgage lender will require you to have a title insurance policy, and that's something that they require you to pay for at the time of closing. The amount is based off of your loan amount, and what that policy does, it gives that lender the protection so that if our title examiner missed a document at the registry of deeds because it was misfiled, somebody typed in a name wrong, or just the title examiner just having a bad day and just made a mistake and missed it. When that lender, if they have to go foreclose on your property and that problem pops up, that title insurance policy that they have protects them so that they don't have to pay to clear the problem. So if it is an outstanding lien that wasn't paid, they don't have to pay that lien. The title insurance company is on the hook to kind of pay for them, or at least clear the problem to make sure that they're able to resell the property. So that is required on every mortgage in Massachusetts to purchase a home. Now, the optional policy is an owner's policy. An owner's policy gives the homeowner, the buyer, that same protection. So in the event in the future, a buyer or a homeowner goes to refinance that property or sell the property, and the same thing, a problem comes up. The title examiner didn't pick up something, or again, just totally misfiled at the registry of deeds. That policy is in place so that you don't have to pay out of pocket to fix that problem. A lot of times people say, well, am I really going to need that? Because it could be an additional cost that you have to consider at the time of closing. I received a call 2 weeks ago from a person I did not do the closing for. And she was referred to me by a lender that I work with closely. She had bought a property in 2021, and she received a notice of foreclosure a week before calling me on the property for the seller's mortgage. So what happened was the seller had a second mortgage that was not paid at the closing. The attorney that did the closing did not know that there was a second mortgage because the seller did not disclose it, and the registry of deeds had the person's last name misspelled. So when the title examiner did their title exam for the property, the lien did not pop up because they spelled the name how it appeared on the deed of record. So the mortgage was missed. The mortgage was in fact outstanding, and the seller had stopped paying the mortgage. And so that mortgage company actually trumps her deed and has a right to foreclose on the property. She unfortunately did not purchase title insurance. So her title insurance policy is based on the sales price of her home. Her title insurance policy at the time of closing would have cost her $525. She is now paying an attorney $300 an hour to resolve this problem for her so that she doesn't lose her house over a mortgage that she doesn't own. So it is an optional policy, but I always make sure that my clients understand the benefits of that policy, because in my opinion, the benefits far outweigh the costs of the policy. And if you look at the costs, obviously the higher the purchase price, the more the cost, but it is capped in Massachusetts. It's based on the sales price, and it's $4 per 1,000 of the sales price. And that actually includes, if you're getting a mortgage, that $4 includes your lender's policy that you're already required to pay for anyway. So while we're on closing costs, some other closing costs that we see in the process are recording fees for the registry of deeds. The registry of deeds requires us to record the documents to make the transaction. legally valid and to be known to all third parties that who owns the property and who has rights to the property and liens and so forth. So the registry of deeds charges their recording fees as well. Property taxes, as we discussed with the tax certificate, will be disclosed and have to be paid at the time of closing. Condominiums are another property very popular in this area as well. Condominiums, we do have to do extra due diligence with those. We have to request a document from the condominium association that shows what condo fees are outstanding. Because if the condo fees are not paid by the seller at the closing, the buyer inherits those condo fees. They don't go with the party, they go with the property. So that's another document that we have to deal with for properties. So ideally, we get our title work in, everything is clear, property looks good, we send everything to Fred, get the clear close from the lender, which is our 3 favorite words that we love to hear in this process. And we come to the closing, and that is my most favorite part of this process. The closing is when we actually meet, usually for the first time, because a lot of our discussions are either via Zoom or telephone or even just email. So we actually meet in person to sign. So some states do allow for virtual signing. Massachusetts is still not one of those states. Hopefully, maybe in the next few years we'll be on board. New Hampshire just this year officially has now done 100% remote closings as long as the lender is approving of that. So. Massachusetts, we're still meeting in person to sign your closing documents. So you come in and we meet and we sign the actual paperwork from your lender and the actual paperwork from your title insurance company. So some of the documents are your actual promissory note that you are promising to pay the lender, the mortgage to your property, which is the collateral document that secures the loan that the lender is giving you, the closing disclosure statement that actually breaks down every single number that you are paying at that closing table. If there's a charge, you are seeing it on that document. And then other documents that your lender is going to require you. So the actual closing process, depending on how thorough you read the documents, can take anywhere from a half hour to 60 minutes. And again, it's done in person. We love it when our realtors are there and the loan officer is there. Sometimes the sellers are there as well to sign the documents. Since the era of COVID has hit us, we've now had less traditional closings with all of the parties present. Sellers, most times right now, are opting to meet separately with their attorneys to sign the paperwork and handling their side remotely, which is 100% okay. So it's fun. Sometimes you have the big parties, but then sometimes you just have your little intimate crew of your team that you've worked with. So that is really it on the closing part. I think we have some questions. I see somebody walking over to me, so.
No, you were very thorough.
I'm an attorney, I have to be.
I think that's why you were wrapping up this thing. No, honestly, I mean, what we've gone through over the past few years has been very difficult. And a lot of people are putting more pressure on each component of the buying process. And obviously you have to wrap up everything, make sure it's nice and controlled.
Yes.
The title insurance was something that we were talking about, I think, recently, about people trying to avoid the cost of it. I'm glad you covered that, because that's been kind of a subject that Fred and I touched on too, with the amount of closing costs, total closing costs, and the fear that some people were having, going into buying a home, how much they have to bring at the end of the day. Fortunately, some people, us, Cassie and I, are talking to our sellers about having closing costs as part of their credit to make it easier for the buyer to wrap it up. What do you feel is the most significant hurdle right now for home buyers when it comes to going through this process for you? What do they not understand? What do they have the most angst about?
Obviously, everybody sees like the news and sees the rates and gets nervous about the rates. So, that's a hurdle, I think, more that Fred has to jump around. But I think the hurdle how that relates to me is making sure that they are working with a well-informed mortgage professional so that when they go in, they have their offer accepted and they get to the purchase and sale agreement, they understand what their payment's going to be. Because once you sign that purchase and sale agreement, there's very little that I physically can do to protect that deposit unless there is a contingency in that purchase and sale agreement. So if you start to get cold feet because rates are going up high, unless there's a way that we can use the mortgage contingency and get a denial from Fred, there might not be a way out of that contract. So that deposit, could be at risk if the buyer gets cold feet. So that's the hurdle that I usually see, is making sure people understand that, once that purchase and sale agreement signed, absent a contingency that's in that document, that deposit could potentially be at risk, meaning they might not get it back if they decide not to purchase.
Okay, so now, it was earlier mentioned, and we appreciate the fact that you commented on having a knowledgeable realtor working with you, because that's something that we find, is very important when we're writing offers. Because we're writing an offer based upon dates, expected times for Fred to get a commitment to, that Steve can do his home inspection before the purchase and sale happens. And these are all very important things, because we know that at the end of the day, we're gonna hand this off to you. And you may look at it and be like, what happened? Why are these dates the way they are? Attorneys, the attorneys that we've worked with in the past, including yourself, we need to make sure that we do things properly too. And that's where working together is very important. Fred preps it, Steve gets it going, but at the end of the day, we're communicating with you. We're talking with our attorney throughout the rest of the process. Steve's done his job. Fred's in the background just waiting to get to the point where they can say, yes, you got your commitment. But during that whole time that we're negotiating, we're working with the attorney to go through the negotiation process, right?
Right, and I think the important thing that you just said there is team. Like, as a team, we know, like, if you're writing up an offer, you're picking up the phone. If you have a question, you're picking up the phone and calling me before they sign that offer. So having a team is really important. So I'd say, lean on Cassie, lean on him. And if you have questions during the offer phase, say, hey, who's the attorney that you suggest I work with? Like, get them involved at the offer stage. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Even if it doesn't get accepted, it is what it is. I know I personally don't charge any legal fees until the actual closing takes place. Can't speak for other attorneys, but if that's the case, like you said, if you're working with a team, that's why you have the team there for these types of situations.
Plus, it alleviates any issues before it becomes an issue. It stops you dead in your track before there's a problem. Excuse me. You had mentioned something about the commitment and job loss, or maybe some type of an issue with that. When you have the right attorney working with you, they make sure that all the different parts of the contract itself, the purchase and sale, are completed correctly. I've seen in the past where some things were left out. You have to have someone who's gonna go through it thoroughly. And if you can tell, she went through the entire presentation, barely looking at anything. She knows her business, and that's what you want. You want someone that understands the transaction, real estate transaction from beginning to end. You want to have someone working with you that can answer questions on the fly and be able to help. So we do thank you for coming into that. That was very nice to have you. Could you guys come up here too?
Absolutely.
Because, we went through without actually eating and having to take a break, so we have everyone here.
That's fine.
And Cassie, come on up here, please.
Oh, she's coming with me.
Yeah.
You're getting there. So I think we're all on this. So this is Cassie, who's been behind the scenes, and honestly, could not work with a better person. She actually has an itinerary for everything that we do.
Yes.
Honestly, whenever we're working on anything right now, it's like bullet pointing with little check boxes so that we know we're gonna go. And that's important too, as a real estate agent, you wanna work with a partner who knows everything that needs to be done during the transaction, and I'm fortunate to have that person working.
And that's part of our job too, making sure everyone's on track to get to the closing.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna coordinate with everybody involved, and that's what you need from start to finish when you're buying your first home. When you're buying anything, investment properties, anything. Because there's little steps along the way that none of us will ever know, in, the whole thing. That's why each person has their professional part of it.
I learned a couple of things starting so.
Well, honestly, we enjoyed being here, and Cassie and I hope you enjoyed being here.
Absolutely.
If you have any questions, the contact details for each of these people are gonna be involved at the end of the broadcast, and we're gonna make sure that we repost this and we make it viewable on different social media platforms. We may even break it up a little bit, so each of you will have a component video associated with each of you. So again, thank you for viewing. We hope to help you become first-time home buyers or next-time home buyers. Because Fred shared with us that, what is the average, it's 5 years?
Somewhere between 5 and 7 years, people either refinance, sell, or do something. So it's more than likely they're gonna refinance, especially in this market. That's one thing we talk about. You marry the house, don't marry the rate. It's a term we're all using these days, because it's very true when we've had such a sudden spike. But yeah, there'll always be discussions in the future.
And, hey, we did briefly touch on adjustable rates, and this was the fun thing. I'm listening to you right now say this about not marrying the rate, marrying the house. When everyone bought their homes 10 or 15 years ago, they started looking at rates when they started going below 4, right?
Yeah.
So everyone jumped on, let me get my, redo the rate. Let's get a new contract place for our mortgage. It's the same thing now. I mean, that's why people are looking at adjustable rates now, because they're at like 4.75 or just over 5, whereas the conventional rate is up near 7 or 6.5.
Yeah.
So go get the adjustable if it suits you. That's why you speak to your mortgage professional. Obviously you gotta wrap it up at the end of the day too. And look at the new contract, but then you can go back in a year from now and do that over again. And again, we talked with Steve about making sure that the house is perfect. The house is never gonna be exactly perfect, but if you know what the house has in it before you sign the closing document, at least you know what you're buying.
Yeah, I mean, many times, I shouldn't say many times, but sometimes there's too many things there. And for some points, too much for somebody to take over. And I we're not supposed to tell you whether to buy the house or not. But I mean, if there's a number of things there, I'm just gonna recommend to you, I think, you need to pass on this, your lifestyle, your family. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that get involved with purchasing a house. And, if it's not gonna work in your lifestyle, find something else. There's always a house for you out there.
I think that's exactly
good number,
true.
yeah.
That's exactly true. Well, again, thank you for coming here today.
Thanks.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, we're gonna feed you now, right? We're actually all feeding each other, right? So, it smells good in here. So again, we look forward to doing this again, because we're hoping to do this again, maybe twice a year. Something for the fall buyers, something for the spring buyers. It's a challenging time right now to buy a home, but it's not a horrendous time to buy a home. For a lot of people right now, they were concerned about the interest rates, but you also have less competition right now. You don't have 50 people lining up to put an offer on a property. You have no reason to avoid having a home inspection.
Right.
You can get your rate redone in 6 months to a year from now. Please keep your job. And it just works. Christine will happily sit there.
Every refinance, every time you wanna get a mortgage.
It will work for you. So again, don't avoid buying a home because of fear. Find out what you can do. Find a professional that can help you. We have 3 right here that can definitely do that. Cassie and I would love helping you find your first home. We don't mind digging into the properties, finding out whether or not the value is there in the neighborhood that you want to buy. That's our job. We coordinate with everyone involved, right?
Right.
That's our job.
There you go.
So you're not working alone in a home purchase. At least when you find the right people. When you find the right people, you're not working alone. Okay? Right?
One last thing, I didn't get into much about programs other than, what we, in a general sense, offer, but there's a recent change that Mass Housing, if you haven't heard, is a mass agency that is predominantly works with first-time home buyers. And in the middle of September, they came out with a program called Mass Dreams. And it's geared towards consumers that live in affected areas by COVID, or more adversely affected areas of COVID that were, during the pandemic. And it's a grant program where you're able, depending on your income, to get upwards of $50,000 in grant funds towards the purchase of a home. And what that means is if you fit in the boxes to the program, and why I like it so much, and it's so exciting for, a first-time home buyer, in many communities, is it can be your down payment, it can be your closing costs, you can utilize it to buy down the rate, you can utilize it to get rid of PMI, to pay a one-time charge to get rid of PMI. It's a fantastic program, I'll give you one example just because I just think it's a program where funds are gonna run out on this probably sometime next year. But in the meantime, I'm trying to get it out to as many people as possible because it's just 50/50. It's a great program. A client that is in the process of buying a condo right now, she was gonna put 5% down of her own funds. In this case, she's gonna use 5% of the grant for her 5%. We were able to pay all of her closing costs. We were able to buy down her rate. And she's literally gonna close with no money out of pocket on a great little condo for herself. And the day she closes, unlike down payment assistance, where sometimes there's some payback on a loan, this is forgivable. It's gone the day she closes. So it's a fantastic product, worth reaching out if you'd like to see if you do check the boxes, and I can elaborate further.
That's incredible. I mean, honestly, so there's a lot of people that just feel like they're never gonna own anything. And it's not, we're not talking about the upper echelon of people that can just buy cash, just go and buy something. We're talking about people that are in that moderate income, that dream of being homeowners, and always wait because they don't think it's gonna happen. This can make it happen.
Those are the ones that are fun to work with, right? So it's a great program that we're really excited about, and it's the best thing I've seen in a long time when it comes to first time.
Awesome. I'm gonna let Cassie close it out because I talk too much. Cassie, what would you like to say to close this out?
Thank you to everyone for coming. There's lots of information from start to finish of the home buying process. So any one of us can help you understand and learn. Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power. This is coming. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
She's gonna escape off and shut off the Zoom now.